This is Toon Talk Weekly, episode 264. This week, I'm excited once again because we get to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog when we watch the miniseries Sonic Mania Adventures. They just keep getting better.
Where is that kid?
Hey everyone, welcome back to Toon Talk Weekly. This is the weekly cartoon podcast where we chat about, you guessed it, cartoons. I think I said that last week too, so now it doesn't sound as like off the cuff that we talk about cartoons over here. I'm Jake Williams, but I brought along my friend Brad Chmielewski to chat cartoons again this week. What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, dude. How you doing?
Yeah, doing all right. We got a kind of a fun, different cartoon this week.
Yeah, this is like this week, of course, if you've already seen the title on YouTube or SoundCloud or wherever you're listening, we're doing Sonic Mania Adventures, and this is something we've kind of had our eye on for a while. In fact, the first episode of Sonic Mania Adventures came out March 30th of this year of 2018, so that's literally how long it took them to post these 5 episodes together, and now the Sonic the Hedgehog YouTube channel has nicely put together all 5 episodes into a little kind of like mini story.
Right.
So
that's pretty neat. One thing I want to say, though, before we dive into this episode about this cartoon, like our Shirt Tails stuff is blowing up here.
Oh, what is it about Shirt Tails that's blowing up?
Just like there's no content out there for Shirt Tails, right? Mm-hmm. And so when someone looks it up, we're like number one because there's no videos to watch. We should probably just do like a Mystery Science Theater kind of thing and watch all these episodes and put them on the YouTube channel because they don't exist.
I'm really not opposed to it, mainly because it puts my DVD of the full season to good use. You know?
Right.
Yeah, we've gotten some interesting, like, both like YouTube and Facebook. You guys have been finding us, if you found us through looking for Shirt Tails. At least one person, I can't remember exactly what it was like. They were upset that are like, so misleading that I found this instead of my free entertainment. I was like, well, that's what we do here. We just talk about cartoons. So
yeah, and so it's pretty funny, like that show. And recently got the same person commented about Qbert, which Shirt Tails must have been on around the same time. I think we said when we did our Shirt Tails episode, we had never heard of this show. So
no, man, are you kidding me? We did Shirt Tails sometime last year, I think. Qbert was like a couple weeks ago. Like
right.
A month,
but prior to Shirt Tails, I had never seen it or heard of Shirt Tails.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. That's kind of crazy. Maybe we could just be in the market of like, find a cartoon that's very hard to find and then just do a show about that so that we're the only piece of content out there. It's our evil plan at that point. Yeah, man. So if there's ever a time to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog, I want to do it. I remember very early on in the show's existence, we talked about one of the 2 90s cartoons that existed for Sonic that were on different days. I can't remember if we discussed if they were produced by the same company.
I don't know. That was probably episode 2 or 3 of Toon Talk.
Yeah, it was pretty early on. And I remember we picked an episode that I also remember as a kid, because I used to do the thing where you would go, for any kids listening to the show, you would go to the local video store. We didn't even have a Blockbuster where I grew up. So it was just, I think it was called Movie Land, actually, is what it was called, which is pretty sweet.
It's exciting.
Now it's a laundromat, so that's gone. But like, you would rent a VHS that had only like 2 or 3 episodes on it. I mean, these things could not hold a lot of data. So it was kind of lame if you were like, I want to watch Sonic the Hedgehog. There's 12 VHSs here, but I can only rent one at a time, and I'm going to watch these 2 episodes in like an hour. So that's what I remember, and I think that was the episode of Sonic that we picked for that show. But then we learned from another friend, Chris Schmidt, who was on for our reboot episode, that he mentioned that one of the both shows were like produced at the same time, but they were just on different days. And so that's how popular Sonic the Hedgehog was. And, dude, you know, it was always the early console wars of like Mario versus Sonic kind of thing. Whose flagship hero is going to reign supreme in the gaming industry? Mario kind of has sucky cartoons. Sonic just keeps trying.
Yeah, that's true. I think I was gonna come up with a good what's the Sonic just kind of blankets it like we're just gonna keep making stuff. We're gonna like Sonic at some point. if you don't already like them, one of these you're gonna like
suffocate you with Sonics. Just like
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. Man, you gotta imagine like Nintendo's pretty protective these days with their Mario IP. Just like I think of the release of that iOS Mario game, the running game, which is like. It's neat, but it didn't feel like real Mario or something. But like Nintendo is very careful when they decide when to put Mario in something. So I'm kind of shocked they haven't done. Why don't they do? Wouldn't it be awesome if they did a thing like the new Mickey Mouse shorts that Disney does? Like just put it in a new style. Maybe just Mario doesn't have enough to do.
Yeah, I don't know. And they got to figure out because it's a Japanese company, how to market that character to the Japanese culture, right? Like, sure. That's probably more important. Making sure that brand, the hometown brand, works there versus the Mickey Mouse thing is like kind of a unique style to like American cartoons. So yeah, it works out.
Kind of interesting. And then also, if you think about them, like, okay, Sonic versus Robotnik is like just a good guy versus a bad guy, but at a certain point, Robotnik has this like characterization. Right, that he can be both Eggman, this like wacky silly villain who screws up all the time, or the diabolical Dr. Robotnik. Bowser just kind of kidnaps Peach, and that's it. So you don't want him to be like comical. I don't know. There's not a lot of options here.
Yeah,
so
and
making Sonic,
and maybe in the current climate of kidnapping women, that's probably not going to go over very well.
Maybe not the time for that.
Sorry, Bowser, but. You're not just going to cut it today. You're a 1960s kind of guy.
Yeah. So Sonic Mania Adventures, the funny thing about this show is actually I think this marks the third Sonic cartoon we've talked about. I believe we talked about the Sonic Boom cartoon that came out a couple of years ago because there was also the Sonic Boom game that came out. And honestly, I think that's not even half of the Sonic cartoons that have come out. I think there might be 5 or 6, like I think total. Wow. I feel like there was another 3D one at one point, but I'm not quite sure. ToonTalkWeekly@gmail.com if you're a Super Sonic fan and you know. I should have gotten my Sonic stuffed animal out.
That's probably one. There's probably Super Sonic. That's
yeah. So what can we say about Sonic Mania Adventures? There's very little backstory here because you need to know that basically Sonic Mania is a game that came out in 2017, August 2017. This game was very hyped up because over the years, if you're familiar with Sonic the Hedgehog as a game, you probably remember playing the first few, Sonic 1 through 3, Sonic and Knuckles, those games for your Sega Genesis, right? That was like the flagship game for that console. The years have not been kind to Sonic. There have been some truly abysmal games along the way. I vaguely remember Sonic, what was it called? I want to call it like Sonic Heroes or something for GameCube. That was not great. They were always trying to translate this idea of like Sonic the Hedgehog is this fast-moving dude into 3D. And I think like the Sonic Adventure games did okay on the Dreamcast, but it's just been weird. Like there's just been weird Sonic games out there.
Right.
So then flash forward to this. There have been many fan games, I think, that popped up and people are interested in making games. And I think eventually Sega ends up working with some of these developers to develop Sonic Mania, which is a retake on the 2D classic Sonic games that you remember. So in this game, you can play some of the old levels that you remember from as a kid from some of the classic games, but also reimagine new levels, like taking a fresh look at Sonic in his original way. This is all just to say that basically Sonic Mania refreshed, I think, what Sonic is. It brought it to a modern generation, and it definitely like brought Sonic back in the good graces of gaming for now until they release other games. But Sonic Mania Adventures is a short 5-part miniseries that they kind of released to pump up the release of Sonic Mania Plus, which includes like extra stages, extra characters and stuff this year. So all the episodes for this show came out between March 30th and July 17th. Also, if you'll remember, dude, when the Sonic Mania trailer came out for the game, there was this really, really cool like pencil animation, this cell animation intro that lots of people were sharing. Even people in our like motion graphics industry were really into this and said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if they made a cartoon? Now here we are.
Yeah, nice.
So that's kind of like the background. The animation was produced by Nico Productions, and the music was by T. Lopez for the series. But it's interesting when I say series because it is a 13-minute quick story. It goes by real fast.
An episode of most cartoons.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
With no dialogue. So it makes it's going to be hard for you to have clips in here because there's nothing to show or see or hear. Sorry, that went through all the different things for a podcast. It doesn't lend itself very well. So
we'll still toss a couple in and hopefully they don't get taken down, like tends to happen. But if you guys are already on YouTube watching our show, you should probably just pop over to the Sonic the Hedgehog YouTube channel and just watch it because it's free. It's all out there. And the animation is pretty awesome. So talk about the characters. Your favorites are all there. They're the ones that you know. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, of course, your main three heroes, fighting against Dr. Robotnik and his kind of like evil robots. Mecha Sonic at some point makes an appearance, one of the mightiest villains, I guess, in Dr. Robotnik's sort of arsenal. And then there's two characters, Brad, that I wondered if you knew who these guys were because I kind of never knew who they were.
Watching this, at some point, there's like a little Knuckles scene. And then you land on this scene where you have a yellow guy that I assumed was Tails. I was like, he's a yellow guy that spins around. That's got to be Tails. I don't know. It maybe doesn't really look like him because he doesn't have his, 3 tails. But I was like, oh, well, whatever. I don't really know this cartoon, so maybe it's a different style. So whatever. Then this red guy shows up that looks like Knuckles, who Knuckles always has this weird relationship in the Sonic world. Like he's kind of bad or mean to Sonic, but then he helps him out at times. Anyway, he comes in there and saves this Tails looking guy. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But then our other yellow character looks up in the sky and sees Tails flying off. And I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, so these two characters are actually Mighty the Armadillo and Ray the Flying Squirrel. I have to say that these are some deep cuts for Sonic fans. I did not play the game they were in, which is they were the 1993 arcade game Sega Sonic the Hedgehog. So you would have had to have gone to the arcade to select those characters and play in that game.
And where was Amy?
I think Amy was like way later, right?
Yeah, but
when I think of Sonic, I always think of the comics with like the Freedom Fighters and all those characters that really never made it into the games. But I think there's like the Freedom Fighter Sonic world that's kind of like Bizarro Universe or like different world than like regular vanilla Sonic and all that stuff. It's kind of weird.
But Amy looks, at least she's a girl, and you can tell the difference from this Mighty and Ray. Like what? Ray just has ears. He looks like Knuckles but has ears.
Yeah, and then Tails for the longest time when I was a kid, because I loved Sonic as a kid, I thought Tails was a girl. So I was his first name is technically Miles, so I should have known. So these two characters are also featured in the short pretty prominently. Really, these characters were kind of there as additional characters added to Sonic Mania Plus, so now you have the opportunity to play as them as well. So if you're a mega Sonic fan, this is definitely the game for you. I can't believe I didn't check before we signed on to do the show that I have Sonic Mania. Did I get a Plus upgrade for free because I bought it? Probably not. I probably have to buy it.
Probably what, on the Switch? Probably.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's probably some, DLC content there.
Well, I know what I'm doing after this show. I gotta play as Mighty. I gotta, So
you're gonna be like, he's not as good as Tails.
Yeah. So we won't necessarily walk through beat by beat.
That's Ray. Right. I don't even know. Never mind.
Ray is the yellow one that looks like Tails. Mighty, I think, looks more like Knuckles, right?
Okay.
no one looks like Sonic except for Mecha Sonic.
Right.
So we won't like walk through beat by beat of the story. I think we'll touch on some short things here because, man, I actually can't imagine watching this in 5 parts because it just flows so nicely together. I actually couldn't figure out where the breaks were. It's kind of interesting.
Probably like where each scene ended, right? Like, of course, this Ray and Mighty scene would have been a start of one, and when they saw Tails and Sonic flying off after Mecha Sonic, that was probably the cut.
Yeah. And truthfully, they cram quite a bit of like, hey, remember this character? Remember this character? Like into 13 minutes. It's pretty crazy how fast it is. So I will also say something I loved about this was that this is very much an homage to the games. It clearly knows it's related to the Sonic games because so many of the sound effects and musical beats are very familiar things to anybody who's ever played a Sonic game.
Yeah.
Just sound effects and everything. I was like, oh, the cartoons never really did that or didn't like play it up as much. But essentially you start off with Sonic sort of having this showdown with Dr. Robotnik as you would, right? Lots of the scenes actually, I know when you're first introduced to Tails, which I believe is the start of episode 2, it's sort of one of those like just a regular day fixing my ship or fixing my plane, and then it turns bad, right?
Yeah.
But very early on, you realize that Dr. Robotnik is after the Chaos Emeralds, as he typically is. And truthfully, I feel like a bad Sonic fan now, because I can't remember what you get if you possess all of the Chaos Emeralds. Some sort of power.
I don't remember either. Yeah.
But so, in the very beginning, you also realize that this is going to be very comical and light and fun, because the sort of climax of the first chunk of episode, or the first episode, is that Sonic gets kind of captured. He like thinks he saved the day, but it was actually trapped by Robotnik. Robotnik reveals that, hey, I know that Sonic and Tails have 2 of the Chaos Emeralds. I've got 4 of them at this point. And then he ends up getting caught in kind of his own trap by Sonic. And it's like, you realize it's going to be ridiculous, funny Eggman and not like diabolical Dr. Robotnik.
Yeah, I think he's been more funny in the like all these recent cartoons. Like, I think it's better.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of great animation here. We did talk about it. A lot of it seems to be hand drawn or frame by frame, which makes the characters very bouncy and squishy. There's some really great characterization on the faces of Dr. Robotnik that he makes. There's in one of these scenes where he's hanging upside down and Sonic's deciding if he should let him go or not because he feels kind of bad that he has Robotnik trapped and he's about to blow up with this bomb. Where his mustache is just so floppy. It's like really fun. But of course, Sonic decides at the end, he's like, nah, man, I'm going to let this thing blow up, right? We are introduced as we go to Knuckles, who is doing his duty of protecting this one Chaos Emerald and won't let anybody there. There's some great shots of Knuckles like doing this like creep around the Chaos Emerald. And this is kind of, I think, early on, I believe this is where we're introduced to Ray originally. And Ray is actually looking for Mighty. So really the only reason Ray and Mighty show up is because they get caught up in all 3 of these other characters trying to keep Dr. Robotnik mainly from having the Chaos Emeralds. Mm-hmm. It's not even, Knuckles is like only there to protect his own, which
is the biggest one of them all. Like, why does he have this giant one?
So again, Sonic fans, don't be mad at me. I haven't read up on this stuff in a long time. If I remember correctly, I remember a big deal was Knuckles living on this floating island that was powered by a Chaos Emerald. However, I can't tell you if there's a different breed of Chaos Emerald, like, are there 7 main ones and then like a super powered one that's like powering
Knuckles
the island?
Protects.
Yeah, I do remember him being, I think that's why he always has that relationship with Sonic, where like at first he's sort of hesitant to be friends with Sonic because, hey, what are you doing here? I'm trying to protect this emerald, and suddenly you're here.
Sonic is like, yeah, me too, dude. Like,
yeah.
He's like, I got this under control. No, you don't.
Along the way here, you sort of have that same are Sonic and Knuckles friends in the beginning here because Robotnik explodes. He flies over and happens to land in front of Tails' ship, or his plane, steals it, which then also uses to steal the emerald that Knuckles was guarding. Knuckles looks up through binoculars or up in the air, doesn't see the silhouette of Dr. Robotnik, but does see that it's Sonic's plane, and is like, I think Sonic took my emerald. At one point, we get a very wide look of the world and kind of what's going on here when I think Ray is climbing up to kind of look for Mighty, and we sort of see everybody heading towards Robotnik's lair, right? For different reasons. You've got the plane with Robotnik flying there, bringing the emeralds that he's taken. You've got Sonic heading there, trying to capture it. You've got Knuckles also running there because he's trying to actually get back the emerald that was stolen. So everything is going to come to a head here at Robotnik's lair with whatever he's going to do with these emeralds. Mm-hmm. This is also where we get introduced to Mecha Sonic, and we actually get to like a great fight scene. And they do a lot of like almost like comic book-esque stuff with some split screens here where everybody gets their licks in on Metal Sonic and they actually like show them doing cool attacks. But Metal Sonic's powered up with all these emeralds, so he can fight them and it's fine. But Knuckles always seems to be like way more powerful than everyone else. I don't know.
Yeah, he is pretty tough. I guess all he does is train and protect his Chaos Emerald.
But he's still got those like lanky arms everyone else has. But he is known as like the stronger dude, right? Mm-hmm. The bruiser, the puncher. So you get this great fight scene to kind of end off that like, hey, Robotnik's captured all these emeralds. We got to stop this. They do end up saving the day. But dude, the way this ended, I think I told you that I was like, it ends in such a comical way. It's like all this battle just happened, resolution, great, they saved the day. You're thinking, how are they going to end this? Are they going to go like do this parade? Are they going to like shake hands and wave?
Right.
I don't know. Are they going to like shake hands and wave and be like, I acknowledge that we helped each other today? Mm-hmm. No, man. Hard cut, them eating chili dogs, and it plays like the victory sound from the Sonic games.
Yeah.
Which was a good Easter egg, I guess, but I was sort of like...
Right.
What?
Doesn't Sonic love chili dogs? Isn't that like his thing?
In one of the two 90s cartoons, he does.
Okay.
So, sort of weird, but it's kind of a classic tale of Sonic, like, and these, like, Robotnik hijinks. I will say that something I wanted from it was, like, way more. When they said they were going to do a series, I would love to see full series of this, and I wouldn't mind voice actors, honestly. I think it would help flesh out some things a little bit more. But just, they kind of lumped a bunch of stuff into one, like, what are the odds that us, the audience, are viewing this story right when 7 emeralds are all in the same place, kind of thing. There's no like journey there. So what were your thoughts on the show, Brett?
Yeah, I like the style a lot. I wonder if it's maybe it's a test, like, oh, do people like this? How much was it to make? Did it promote the game at all? Should we like do more of these? Like maybe it was a little bit of that, or maybe it was just like, hey, we just want more content to come out with this game. So when you look for it, this shows up as well.
Yeah, it totally could be. And each of these, I mean, dude, including the all version, have millions of views on them. So
Right.
People are clearly watching these, which is good. That's at least a good test. And I'll say that people are watching these more than they're watching a lot of Sonic's other content. So, yeah, maybe I think we're both in kind of the line here. We're like, I kind of hope it's a test so that it means maybe we get more of this because it's a great style.
I would totally watch more. Yeah, maybe... if they added some voice acting, I would want to watch more. If there was 36 episodes that were 10 minutes each or whatever, and no one talked that whole time, that might be tough for me personally. But it's still pretty neat overall.
Yeah, I think it's a cool take on Sonic, especially in an era where I feel like these Flash cartoons are coming out and do have a cool look to them. I feel like it's bringing Sonic kind of into that world where he's a little bit shorter and cuter, but also way more like spongy and bouncy and like free to do these sorts of things. But I don't know. I feel like the show also had a good mix of like, there were 3D elements as well as 2D elements and all kinds of stuff sort of like mixed in with this. I think a lot of like Dr. Robotnik's like robotic things were actually 3D, but made to look like they fit into the world. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Cool take on Sonic as a guy who's liked Sonic games for so long. However, I will say I love Sonic Mania. The game's really fun, but you forget how brutal Sonic is. Like, you just run fast, but if you hit one thing, your entire game slows down. Now you're screwed.
Well, you love the Mega Man games, and that's the same kind of idea.
It is. The new Mega Man game just came out. We should just turn this into a old Jake Plays Old Games podcast, because that's kind of what my life has been recently. So yeah, I think that's going to do it for this episode. We're happy we could finally check out the Sonic Mania Adventures show. We definitely recommend you guys go check it out at the Sonic YouTube channel as well, because they're all there and they're all free. And it's a cool take on Sonic the Hedgehog. If you've never watched the cartoons before, this is kind of like a refreshing take on it. But let's get out of here, Brad. Where can people find out more about you when you're not recording this show?
So you can follow me on Twitter. It's @brad, and then my blog is digitalhitchhiker.com.
Great. Go check them out over there. You can follow me on Twitter @Jacob Williams. And of course, you want more Toon Talk Weekly. We're all over social media: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Google+. We're @Toon Talk Weekly. Of course, toontalkweekly@gmail.com, the place you can send any messages you'd like us to read. We'd like to hear from you guys about any other Sonic shows, because we might as well just cover them all at this point.
Right.
We really should have just planned to do a Sonic month so we can watch the other shows. And I'm pretty sure there's like at least 2 or 3 others we haven't done. So, and finally, toontalkweekly.com, the main hub for the show. You can find any and all episodes over there up to this point. That's going to do it for this week's cartoon. I mean, it was Sonic the Hedgehog, so I'm pretty happy about it. We'll be back next week as usual with another cartoon.
Take care.
To learn more about the show, visit toontalkweekly.com or follow us on Twitter @toontalkweekly.